Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you guys for being here. I hope you guys are doing well. Happy Mother's Day everyone. When I post this video, it is exactly the Mother's Day. So to celebrate that, because I am a mother myself, I decided to make a dedicated video on this, talking about the unique traditions and practices when it comes to birthing in the Philippines, giving birth in the Philippines, having a child in the Philippines. Now, Filipinos consider the birth of a child the greatest blessing, not just for that couple who's going to have that child, but for the entire family. And everybody celebrates when someone gets pregnant. The entire community celebrates because, again, Filipinos consider the birth of a child as the greatest blessing in life. So, traditional culture in the Philippines puts a very high value in motherhood. Again, most Filipinos consider the birth of a baby as the greatest blessing and a significant event to be celebrated. So, actually, this is very common in the Philippines, and I've heard that some foreigners find this a little bit intruding. The moment after your wedding, like not even a couple of weeks after that, people start asking like, when are you guys going to get pregnant? When are you going to have a baby? Are you pregnant yet? Those kind of questions, because people are just so excited when it comes to the topic of having a baby. Most Filipinas love children. So someone talked to me about this and I thought this was very interesting. He mentioned, I'm an American and I'm retired. I want to get married to a Filipina, and I think I found the one. Now she's kind of young, she's in her mid 20s, and I've already experienced having children, so I'm kind of just wanting to retire and enjoy life. So yeah, I want to marry her, but I don't want to have children. Now the thing is this: most Filipinas, if she has never had any child before, she will most likely want to have a child. So that plan of yours of, retiring and just enjoying your retirement, you may want to scratch that, because again, if she's never had a child before, she will most likely want to have at least one child or maybe even children. So expect to be a father on your retirement age. So you're just going to have to accept that, because a majority of Filipinas would want to have at least one child. So that's just a food for thought. Okay, let's go. Let's go to the topic. So, in the Philippines, pregnancy, birth, and the time after the delivery is surrounded by a wide variety of beliefs, customs, practices, rituals that involve the mother and the baby. So there's four categories here I want to go through. The first one is during the pregnancy, the birth of the child, the postpartum care, and then of course infant care. So let's talk about the pregnancy. Filipinos believe that how a pregnant woman acts and the things that happen to her during pregnancy has a major impact on her growing belly. So there's a lot of recommendations to the pregnant woman, warnings, taboos that she should avoid and restrict certain behaviors until they gave birth, to make sure that the pregnancy goes smooth and seamless. So the first one, a pregnant woman's food cravings must be fulfilled promptly or she may suffer a miscarriage. Now, I don't know about suffering a miscarriage, but the food cravings is definitely 100% true, because I've experienced that. During my pregnancy, the first 4 months, I did not have any appetite. After that, all of a sudden, I had these cravings for Indian food. So I found myself going to this Indian restaurant pretty much 2 to 3 times a week. And my husband was like, I've been noticing that you've been going to this restaurant. What's up with that? I'm like, I just want to eat Indian food, garam masala, the butter chicken, curry was my that was basically the staple meals for me at least 3 times a week. Now, because my husband is an American, I didn't have an expectation that he's going to get up in the middle of the night and look for this food that I want to eat. I did not expect that. If I wanted to eat something, I just went ahead and got it myself. But if you're married to a Filipina and then she gets pregnant and then in the middle of the night she asks you for an unripe mango, don't be surprised. That's a thing. So apparently, if you can, try to, do her a favor, give her those food cravings that she wants. Now, some of the stories I've heard on this are somewhat ridiculous. Now, I don't think some of these are kind of funny. I remember a neighbor apparently like waking up her husband in the middle of the night looking for what do you call that, taro ice cream. the husband has to go through several grocery, 24 7 24 hours grocery store looking for that specific ice cream. Now if you live in Manila, that might be okay. But if you live in the provinces, that could be hard. But majority of pregnant women in the Philippines usually crave for something sour. And the Philippines being a tropical country, there's plenty of choices when it comes to sour fruits. You got unripe mango, suha, calamansi juice, whatever. Anything sour would probably suffice what she wants. All right, let's move on to the next one. A pregnant woman should avoid looking at anything ugly, scary, or blemished because that could cause the baby to be born ugly or disfigured. Now, I've heard of this before, and some women, they really do end up getting scared and they're like, no, I'm not gonna watch anything scary. They avoid looking at someone who's, I guess, disfigured because they think that that would affect the appearance of the child. I don't believe in this one, but some people think, it doesn't hurt to abide by those, restrictions. All right, the next one. Kind of lost. To ensure a healthy pregnancy, the mother to be is advised to avoid wearing nail polish, wrapping any items around her neck, and cutting her hair. Some believe this could lead to unfavorable outcomes regarding the baby and the mother's well being. Now, the nail polish, I think that's not just really in the Philippines. I think majority of women during pregnancy, they try to be mostly natural when it comes to things that they put on their body, especially in your skin. I personally did that. I went a little bit organic, a little bit, I decided to refrain from using very chemically, processed like skincare, I'd say. No heavy makeup, no heavy perfumes, very, very light with everything, as natural as I could, And nail polish is one of those things that a lot of women are advised to not use during pregnancy. But here in the US, there are some natural nail polish you can use, but in the Philippines, they advise for women to not use nail polish. Now, the wrapping on the neck, I think I've heard of this before. They think that if you wear anything like tight on your neck during pregnancy, that might affect the baby inside your tummy, which again, this is kind of it doesn't make sense. But some women again abide by these rules because they think, why not? If that would ensure the baby's safety, why not? It doesn't hurt to just abide by those restrictions. But again, this for me doesn't make any sense. Now, the cutting of the hair, some women do end up keeping their hair long all throughout the 9 months of pregnancy. Again, I personally cut my hair several times during pregnancy. So, I mean, a lot of these are just, beliefs and traditions that people still abide. Now, not everybody in the Philippines, but mostly the rural areas in the country. Okay, the last one. And this one's very interesting. In some provinces, they advise the pregnant women to avoid going places after dark. So they want to make sure they advise you to stay at home after dark, which makes sense. If you're pregnant, you should probably not be going places after dark. But here's the reason why they say that. Because she might encounter an aswang. I'm going to put it on the screen. So you would ask, what in the world is an aswang? So that is a creature in the Philippines an evil creature that can shape shift. A shape shifting evil creatures in Filipino folklore is how you say it. And aswangs are particularly attracted to pregnant women. Pregnant women emit this, nice, delicious smell. Apparently, the pregnant women emit a distinct smell that draws aswangs, which has historically been used to explain miscarriages or stillbirths in rural parts of the Philippines. So, yes, I've heard of many stories on this. I've seen a lot of movies on this as a child. That aswang could be like a witch, a vampire, and they specifically like pregnant women, especially in the early stages of pregnancy. And a lot of times when a woman, not a lot of times, but sometimes when a woman end up getting a miscarriage without really very specific explanation, that's what they say, like, oh, she's probably encountered an aswang. So they make sure that they advise women that if you're pregnant, don't be going places after dark. That could be actually a good advice. Not for this specific reason. I don't believe in this, but if you live in the, if you live in the provinces, mountainous areas, I mean, it's probably best to just stay home after dark. I mean, it doesn't matter where you live. I think pregnant women should stay home after dark. That's just me, okay? All right, so let's move on to the birth. There's a lot of traditions and practices that Filipinos also abide by during the birth of a baby. So there are many cultural beliefs that apply to the birth of the baby as well. Some try to believe they can naturally induce birth during labor by drinking coconut water. Now, I've heard of this before. If the US has an epidural, oh no, not an epidural shot. I mean, they give you something to induce the labor. In the Philippines, they give you coconut water. Now, I don't know if that's effective. Of course, I've never tried that. I had my baby in the hospital. So, if you're a Filipino, you're watching this and you use that method, let me know. And some also use, they put the squash leaves on their belly during labor. Apparently, that could also help with inducing labor. Now, I am a believer of using herbs because growing up in the Philippines back in the day, we didn't really go to the hospital. A lot of times when you're feeling ill or you're very sick, you use herbs, and let's be honest, a lot of these medications are developed from those herbs, so they can be very, very effective. For example, guava leaves, for example, if you have a wound, you can smash that. That's like a really good antibiotic, they call it, or it kills bacteria. So I mean, a lot of these herbs are really, really potent and very, very effective. And every now and then you will find that there's a lot of, here in the US, they probably would consider that quack doctors. But in the Philippines, again, if you live in the very rural areas of the provinces, it's very far from the hospital. So a lot of people resort to the natural method. So I believe some of this could be very effective. Now, during the labor, they also have some practices. They say that they would provide this very solid item for the mother to hold on to. Now, this is, I don't even think this is, I mean, this makes sense. A lot of times when you're, when you're going through the process of labor, I mean, you got to hold on to something really stable. um, I remember watching a movie, a South Korean movie, and they have this practice where, I don't know if I can find a picture on this. They put this like a cloth, and they tie it to this beam of the house, and then the woman would hold on to it while having labor. Makes sense. And of course, you can also have your husband right next to you and just hold on to him. That's very effective too. Okay, moving on. Relatives often visit the hospital during the baby's birth, especially female relatives. However, visitors should maintain some distance from the hospital's room's door, as this can result in labor issues. Additionally, they should not touch the mother because she may transmit her labor pain to them. Now, I don't know about that last one, but a lot of women do prefer to have some privacy during this time. I mean, you're going to be very exposed, especially if you're going to have a natural vaginal delivery. So a lot of times it's usually in the provinces of the Philippines, if the mother decides to have a child at home, usually there's going to be a midwife attending to that the entire process, and then the midwife has some assistant or a doula, they call it, and then the mother of the mother to be is usually there. A lot of times the husband is usually asked to be away, like outside of that room. But there are some cases where the husband's also there to give support. But they advise that the rest of the relatives should be outside of the door of that room where she's giving birth, or the house. Because if you allow everybody, everybody's probably going to be there. Then what? You expose yourself to everybody. Now, I've experienced this growing up when, a couple of neighbors had babies. If that labor happened at night, the entire neighborhood is awake waiting for that baby to be born. And the mothers usually make something, and then when the baby's born, they bring the whatever they made, usually some sort of a porridge, something nutritious for the mother. So it's like an event, not just for that family, but the entire like neighborhood is having a party. There's like a little party going on outside of the home where the mother is giving birth. Okay, let's move on to the next one. So after she gives birth to the baby, they also have a special way of handling the placenta. So burying the placenta after birth is a widely known tradition in the Philippines. It is thought to be necessary to end the mother's labor pains and bleeding, and that task is usually given to the father. So he's gonna have to find a certain spot in the yard to bury that placenta. All right, so now that the baby's born, let's talk about postpartum care. So this is after the delivery of the child. So in the Philippines, majority of the older like women would advise that mothers should or must be kept warm and should stay inside the house for at least 30 days after birth. So the key here is to really not expose her to this thing, the cold wind, because that cold wind could get into her body, inside her body, and then she could get this thing called BNAT. Now I'm gonna put that on the screen. I don't know how it's translated in English, but they really just want to make sure that the recovery process is seamless. Now during that process, some women, some mothers will also snugly wrap items around their abdomen to support the uterus healing process. So that's where you start this process of healing and recovery. Recovery and healing is very important. So the mother is given a series of postpartum massages. Now this is amazing. So in the Philippines, not only they give you this postpartum massages, they also will give you certain foods like right after you deliver the baby, that would help you recover. Anything warm, nothing cold. The key here is to avoid cold foods, and that food is usually very soupy. Anything soupy that could help you produce breast milk, because again, breastfeeding is widely practiced in the country. So anything that would support lactation. And during that process, you would find that everybody, all the mothers in the neighborhood would come bringing you something warm, a porridge. Tinola is very, very like popular, but they avoid anything that's called fishy or malangsa. They don't want that, because anything you eat would translate, is that the word, would affect the type of milk you're gonna produce. I believe that because I breastfeed my child myself, and it really does. You start eating foods that might cause some sort of allergy to the child. Whatever you eat, you pass that on the child. So in the Philippines, I want to talk about this because this is also very important. My video is probably going to be long, guys, so bear with me. So I've heard that when I had a child here in the US, one thing that I noticed, that even before you're like discharged, as soon as you deliver that baby, you will find that one of the you're going to be asked over and over again is that, are you depressed? Are you going through postpartum depression? And that really shocked me. I was like, why would I be depressed? Yes, there is a lot of emotions, because having a child is like a shock to your system. All of a sudden you're like responsible for this little being. Before that, it's all about yourself, and then your spouse. It's just you two, and then all of a sudden you're taking in this big responsibility, and with that, you combine that with not sleeping for at least 6 months. Not getting enough sleep for that period of time. It's a shock to your system. And so I was asked over and over again, are you depressed? Are you feeling something that may not be normal? Do you want us to connect you with like a mental health professional? And I was so shocked about that, because you know what? I've never heard of that term growing up in the Philippines. And now I think there's a reason why. In the Philippines, when you deliver a child, if you're the mother, you will never feel alone. Never. Because everybody is there for you. The neighbors, they're gonna come, bring you food. I mean, you would have random neighbors come into your house asking, do you need help? Here, it makes sense that women would end up feeling that way, because during that period in your life where you get, again, this shock into your system of, wow, big responsibility, this, your life completely changed. It's like a 360, very, very different. And you're going through that alone. Like a lot of times you're alone. Now, don't get me wrong, there are families who are very supportive. If your mother is around, of course, I mean, she's gonna go above and beyond to support you. But it's also, the reality is, it's also very hard to expect people to be there for you, because it is a different culture, and the lifestyle is different. Everybody has a job here. Like, your mother, your mother-in-law, your sisters, your sister-in-law, your friends, they all have a full-time job, and they're not going to be there for you. They have a job. They have to be at work. So in the Philippines, a lot of the mothers, and I'm talking about the traditional families in the provinces usually, because this is not the case in Manila anymore. But in the provinces, women are available. You will have older women coming to your house asking, "Do you need any help? Are you feeling all right?" So everybody's checking on you because Filipinos, a lot of times the Filipinas, the women in the provinces have time to do that. Here in the US, not just it is a different culture, it's impossible to do that because a lot of the women are working full time. So that's the reason why I have never heard of that term postpartum. Now, I've heard this was actually a big story in the Philippines. During the COVID, a lot of Filipinos who ended up having their giving birth during that time went through this thing called postpartum depression because a lot of them couldn't travel to their family or their family couldn't visit them because there was a lockdown. In fact, one Filipina ended up committing suicide because it was just too hard for her. She was alone during that time. So when a woman goes through that process of, again, it is a very life-changing event, it's very important to give support. So if you know of a friend who's just had a child and, you know, um, reach out. I mean, you don't have to be like, you don't have to intrude. Just reach out and let that person know that, hey, if this is your coworker or a friend or a relative and they just had a baby, just let them know that I'm here if you need anything. I think that's very, very important. All right, that was a long-winded explanation. Let's move on to the next one. Let's talk about infant care because this is also very, very, very important. The newborn baby is also kept very warm, just like the mother, and protected from anything that might startle the or frighten the baby. So no shaking of the baby. That's a no-no. No screaming around the baby. Just make sure that it's a peaceful environment. Now, the noise might be a little different because, as you know, Filipinos can be very loud. All right, but majority of the time, they want to make sure that the baby is in a safe, quiet place. In some provinces, the mother's first milk, this is that thing called colostrum, is considered dirty. Now, that kind of surprised me because here, again, I also breastfeed my child. That's one thing that they advise you in the hospital. They're like, you want to make sure that your baby get that first milk because it's good for the baby. Now, in the Philippines, in some provinces, most provinces in the Philippines, they consider that dirty. So the first milk that you produce, they actually throw that away. They think it's not good for the baby. And during that time where you're still, in the process of producing milk or lactation, they do end up giving the baby something else. In a lot of towns, they give the baby they call this rice water. When you cook rice and it starts to boil, there's this thick water that comes out of that. You know what? As a little child, I grew up drinking that. That's what they give to the child until the mother is able to produce that so-called clean milk. So the first milk she produced, they throw that away. Here, they actually tell you you should make sure that the baby get that. So it's very different. All right. Some Filipinos also believe that their emotions can be transmitted through their breast milk. So they want to make sure, again, they want to make sure that the mother is stable, not just mentally, physically, because they want to make sure that the baby is healthy. So the well-being of the mother is very much connected to the child. And you know what? I believe this one because when you're very emotional, I mean, the child can feel that because you have that bond, you have that connection. So if you're going through some type of depression, the baby can also feel that. And if you're eating very unhealthy foods and breastfeeding, that's not good because you're going to end up giving that transmitting, is that the word transmitting, or whatever food you eat will impact the type, will affect the type of breast milk you're providing. So if you're eating so much food, junk food, and then you're breastfeeding, I mean, that's not good. Try to eat healthy foods as much as possible. All right. For Catholic Filipinos, or Filipino Catholics, which one is right? And majority of Filipinos are Catholic. Probably 76 to 80% of Filipinos are Catholic. They baptize their babies. Catholic families choose to baptize their babies. During the process, crying from the baby signifies a prosperous future. So if that baby cries during the baptism and is very loud, they think that, more extreme crying indicates better luck for the little one. So for Catholics, that's one of the practices they do. They make sure that they baptize the baby. All right, very long video. I'm not sure if you stayed on this one. I just want to say happy Mother's Day to all of the mothers out there. Being a mother is amazing. It's one of, at least for me, it's one of the greatest blessing in life. You know, for some women, you know, pregnancy is very difficult, and it is one problem here in the US that a lot of women are realizing, waiting too long to have a child, and during that process using birth control and all kinds of methods to avoid the pregnancy or to prevent pregnancy. And then later on in life you realize you probably done some damage in your body, and then that's another topic to talk about. But yeah, motherhood is a blessing because not everybody is able to conceive a child. So if you're a mom, you're struggling or going through some, I guess we kind of all do, stay strong, mama. It's gonna be over. If you're in that first year of, you know, of giving birth to a child, it's very, very difficult. But I encourage you to just keep on going. Everything's gonna be all right. And happy Mother's Day to you. Happy Mother's Day to everyone. Bye, guys. I'll see you on my next vlog.